how to get started in FilmPack 5, what new features are in FilmPack 5, creating unique and eccentric looks in FilmPack 5 and how to do so. Most importantly, things to look out for in FilmPack 5, such as certain settings and features. And Allison and I usually like to close things out with a little Q&A just to accommodate everyone. First things first, as we already know, FilmPack's the only image processing software on the market that specializes in black and white emulation. FilmPack's the only software, once again, I can't even stress this enough, the only software capable of achieving 256 shades of black, white, and gray, while other competitors intend to mimic and simulate black and white. Other softwares are capable of achieving about 156 shades of black, white, and gray. Before working in an application such as FilmPack, I can't even begin to explain how important it is to practice color management, because unfortunately, colors can lie. Red needs to be red, blue needs to be blue, green needs to be green. Most importantly, black and white needs to be black and white. I just so happen to be a data color spider guy, but there's other third-party solutions on the market that you can use. So Today we'll be talking about FilmPack. FilmPack's actually a standalone application, but it could be used as the plugin in the following applications, such as Photoshop, Lightroom, Elements, Aperture, and the world's leading image processing software on the market, DxO Optics Pro. You can completely drive FilmPack directly out of Optics Pro, but today I just so happen to be using it as a standalone application. So what we're going to do right now is we're actually just going to go all the way down to my lower toolbar, and give me just a moment to fix one thing here. Hold on a sec. Okay, so we're going to go down to the lower toolbar, and you can clearly see there's no secrets, there's no lies. This is my complete post-productive workflow. My very first starting point and step is color management. Like I said, I just so happen to use data color spider products. There's also a third-party competitor on the market, such as X-Rite, where they make colorimeters, where you can create standardized ICC profiles for your monitors, so everything's color accurate. Then I move over to my tethering. I got good old faithful Lightroom for my cataloging, my keywording. Optics Pro is where I do all my raw conversion, and obviously what we're all here for today to talk about FilmPack. So we're just going to launch FilmPack and set that off. By default, what we're doing is we're tapping into our main directory. We've done some major overhauling on FilmPack where it gives you the capability of tapping into your main directory and things of that nature. If there's one thing that you definitely want to keep an eye out for, it's actually for your thumbnail size. You can actually adjust your thumbnails according to make those previews and that real estate nice and big to accommodate your workflow. So we're just going to bring in one quick image, and we're actually just going to try to accommodate all three different parts of the world. We're going to bring in some portraits, we're going to bring in some nature and travel, we're going to bring in some landscapes to try to accommodate everyone's post-productive workflow. So this is where we're going to start off. So first things first, what I'd like to discuss is what's new in FilmPack 5, because this is something that I intend to run into a lot of times. People want to know what's going on, what's new in FilmPack 5. First things first, we've implemented 16 additional analog film looks, 5 in color, 11 in black and white. FilmPack is now capable of adapting to RAW files, which is huge. Unfortunately, the one RAW file that we cannot adapt to is Fuji X-Trans systems. Another huge, and once again, I can't even stress this enough, considering the fact that we're capable of adapting to RAW files, automatically we're capable of making optical corrections. You bring in a RAW file, we're going to tap into our DOM database, get rid of the distortion, get rid of the vignetting, get rid of that chromatic aberration, but most importantly, we're going to get rid of that nasty digital noise that we can't stand. We want to get rid of all the digital noise, and we want to leave you with all that fine traditional analog film grain that we've all been looking for. We have some new and improved, some amazing strong tools that I will be showcasing today, which is our new fine contrast tool. And I can't even begin to explain how powerful that tool is. You just have to see it for yourself. the split toning tool, the soft focus tool, and most importantly, our brand new 16:9 interface for a more comfortable post-productive workflow experience to accommodate your needs. So we're actually just going to stop real quick and just take another poll. And I actually really am curious to know how many of our end users at home are practicing color management. So we're just going to launch that off real quick. Take 1 minute. If you could be so kind to answer that, we'll continue and move forward. Okay, so we're going to close out the poll to my veterans there. 82% of us are practicing color management. I salute you all. You're doing a great job. You want to know red is red, blue is blue, green is green. Most importantly, you want to get those perfect black and whites. You don't want to get a green, blue, black and white. You don't want to get a purple, black and white. You want to be able to achieve the full spectrum and scale of 256 shades of black, white, and gray. For my 18% end users who are not using color management or practicing color management, two great tools that I could probably recommend to you. One would be the Datacolor Spider Pro, or you can even go as far as use the X-Rite Color Monkey. Two great tools that would create a nice standardized ICC profile and get you right where you need to go. So thank you so much for sharing that information. So we're just going to close that out. So another question that I intend to run into is what files can be supported in FilmPack 5. I mean, if we're using the application as a standalone application, you can adapt to a RAW file, a JPEG file, a TIFF file. If we're using it as a plugin, let's just say in Photoshop, Elements, Lightroom, and Aperture, you can only work out of a JPEG or TIFF 8 to 16-bit mode. Now, let's say if you're using it as a plugin and driving it directly out of Optics Pro, RAW, JPEG, 8-bit, 16-bit, there's no difference. Okay, so that being said, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to tap into one of my personal favorite features of Optics Pro, which is our black and whites. We have some of the most aggressive black and whites on the market. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go into my kiosk and I'm going to select my black and whites. We can select color, we can select legacy films, but for now what I want to do is personally work off the black and whites. Food for thought, tip of the day, call this what you want. If you want to be able to achieve a really fast post-productive workflow and get in and get out, there's two ways of going about this. You can actually work out of one singular column or you can work out of a double column. So what I'm going to do right now is just go to view. If you go to view, you can actually display your presets on one singular column, and you can clearly see now we're strictly just working out of one singular column. It makes the thumbnails nice and big, gives you a nice real estate where you can actually see your final result. For me, I like to move a little bit quick, so I'm going to go back into view and I'm going to break my columns into two individual columns, giving me the capability of adapting to these presets by far a lot more quicker than the average bear per se. One of the things that I love to do is showcase the true emotion of our traditional analog films that we have to offer. As I start cascading through each individual analog film, and I'm just simply doing this with my cursor key, you can clearly see that the true emotion of these traditional black and whites are all coming back to life. As far as the color, the contrast, the saturation, most importantly, that traditional analog film grain that we're looking for. So for me, I'm a big time sucker for T-Max 3200. It was probably one of my all-time favorites. I just so happened to mark it in one of my favorites, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But let's just say, for instance, if you're familiar with the film manufacturer that you're working with, you can easily go into our new and improved search engine, type in the manufacturer, and every single Kodak film that we've chosen starts to show up. So you can clearly see that I have my Kodak black and white 400C. I have my my infrared, but we're going to work off of the T-Max 3200, which is one of my personal favorites. I used to shoot a tremendous amount of pro packs of this film when I was in school. So starting off of the laboratory standard of the T-Max 3200, what we're going to do right now is we're going to make this image our own where it stands out. So what I usually like to do is I usually like to fiddle around with the grain. What we're going to do right now from that point on is we're going to close the grain out. And we're actually going to go into one of our new and improved features, which is our contrast. The contrast is ridiculous at this point. I mean, just to get into the subject, the contrast slider gives us the capability of diminishing or amplifying the gaps between light and dark areas. Your micro contrast, which is a new and improved feature. And keep in mind, these are features that you can only find in the Elite Edition of FilmPack 5. And I'm going to discuss the differences between the Essentials Edition and the FilmPack 5 Elite Edition. But the micro contrast slider is a global boost to micro contrast details. And then you have the fine contrast slider, which is an even greater fineness of micro contrast by boosting the details and the textures while protecting solid colors in certain areas. So if you could be so kind, keep your main focus attention on this lovely gentleman's beard and his tika on his face. By fiddling around with the contrast, boosting up your micro contrast, you can clearly see that all those lovely crannies are starting to come back to life. Ideally, if we was to do this in an overwhelming post-productive workflow such as Photoshop, we would have to create an adjustment layer and do a technique with the unsharpen mask tool, the high bypass filter, put that fancy Wacom tablet and then start coloring in what we want to showcase. But we can clearly do this now just working out of our new and improved contrast slider. This is one major feature I would have to admit that people have to keep an eye out for when using FilmPack 5. I'm going to make some slight adjustments on the highlights. We're just going to open up the midtones just a bit, and then we're just going to open up the shadows. And there we are. So far, so good. If you go up to the upper toolbar, you can save your information, you can create presets, you can even compare, you can change the reference image, or you can actually do a split image display mode, which gives you your original, what we captured, and what we're creating. Usually when I'm working out of a split dual image display mode, I actually like to work in a dual image display mode when I'm working with two particular tools. As far as those two particular tools that I'm referring to, one is definitely the channel mixer. The channel mixer is a professional tool which gives you the capability of tapping into each individual primary channel. Your reds, your yellows, your greens, your cyans, your blues, and your magentas. Another tool that definitely is a huge asset, which is our light and color. Well, not our light and color, but more of our tone curve, if you're familiar with working with your tone curve. But keep your main focus attention. The two individual colors that I so happen to be tapping into, one's going to be the red and the yellow. Just by going into the channel mixer and fine-tuning the red, you can clearly see that anything that's red is actually starting to get a bit dark. What we're going to do right now is just boost up the yellows and make them just a little bit darker. And then with my tone curve, what I'm going to do is the tone curve gives us the capability of tapping into each individual primary channel. But what I'm going to so happen to do is tap into the master channel, which is red, green, and blue, and create something known as an inverted S-curve. By doing this, I can adapt to my highlights, my shadow details, but most of all, I can keep a lot of control over my contrast. And this is our final result. So something like this, I intend to find extremely pleasing to myself. This is the beauty about FilmPack 5. Or FilmPack in general, there's no wrong or right way of using it. It's just getting lost in your creativity and creating all these different signature looks. Look how that beard comes to life. And there's still by far a tremendous amount of fine-tuning that we can go through. But before we start doing that, first what I'd like to do is I want to discuss the differences between the Essentials Edition and the Elite Edition, just to help Allison out with any overwhelming questions that she might be running into. Okay, the difference between the Essentials and the Elite Edition, in the Essentials Edition, you only have 19 black and white films, opposed to 38 in the Elite Edition. You have color positive slide films, which you only have 17 in the Essentials, and you have 27 in the Elite Edition. As far as color negative films, you have 8 in the Essentials and 17 in the Elite Edition. Designer presets, which is to each his own. I'm not really big on the designer presets. I like creating my own designer presets, but we offer 12 in the Essentials Edition and 39 in the Elite Edition. As far as the tonings, they come neck at 6 apiece. 6 in the Essentials and 6 in the Elite Edition. As far as color filters, which is a huge asset to FilmPack 5, considering the fact that we're bringing back that true emotion of traditional analog film grain, we want to be able to utilize the creativeness of traditional analog filters, such as our red, our blue, our green filters. You get 8 traditional filters in the Essentials Edition, and you get 18 in the Elite Edition. Now, I'm actually going to showcase how those traditional analog filters work. As far as plugins and standalones, they both work in both applications. Creative vignetting can be done in both applications, but if there's certain things that really stood out, which makes the Elite such a more superior product than the Essentials, this and only this can you do in the Elite Edition, which is separate toning for highlights and shadows. You have the blur tool, the support of raw formats that can only be done in the Elite Edition. The micro contrast slider can only be done in the Elite Edition. Automated corrections where we can adapt to raw files, get rid of the noise, get rid of the optical corrections, the color protection as far as chromatic aberration goes, advanced colors and black and whites as far as the vibrancy, the HSL slider goes, batch processing, which is a huge asset in the Elite Edition, creating custom presets and snapshots, and you can even adapt to like your social media sites such as Facebook or whatever it is that you crazy kids are doing nowadays at home with your images. So we're actually just going to go in and we're actually just going to open up another image. So I'm actually going to go into the browser, but keep in mind you also have a previous image and the next image where you can select different images. But we're not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my whole entire browser, and let's bring in another face image. We're going to bring this one in next. This is a complete full-blown RAW file. This was shot off of a Canon CR2. Like I said, we can adapt to NIF, CR2s, Sony files, Olympus files. The only file we cannot adapt to is a Fuji X-Trans file. So that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to my presets and we're going to go into our black and white filters. So let's go back into our black and white filters. We're going to do that. We're going to get rid of that Kodak, and we're actually just going to go and we're going to stumble upon something that kind of works and make this image kind of pop. Okay, so I'm going to go with the FOMAPAN 200, and I'm going to kind of fine tune this to make it my own. I'm definitely going to tap into a couple of things, such as the grain. I want to get rid of all the grain, and I want to be stuck with a silky smooth black and white finish. Also keep in mind, when working out of the grain queue or segmentation, as we say, you can also adapt to different type of formats. If you ever shot film before, you obviously know firsthand that different formats intend to make the film grain drop differently. So we took this into consideration when we were studying these different type of films in our lab. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch it over to a medium format just to give it a bit of a medium format look. We're actually going to go into toning where we can actually have high tones and low tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick a cyan, and we're just going to kind of give this a nice little tone right there. My next step is I'm actually going to go into the contrast slider, and I want to make Nancy's face kind of stand out. I want to kind of give it a grungy, elegant look, but not too much where it distracts us from the beauty of her face. So I'm going to bring my contrast to about 50 points. We're going to bring our micro contrast to around 40, and then I'm going to bring my fine contrast to about 25 points. And you can clearly see just the before and after, and we'll split this in half so we can see what's going on. You can clearly see all that fine contrast, all that micro contrast is coming back to life. We're going to adjust our highlights just a bit to recover some of the details in her hair. Okay, there goes that. We're going to recover some of the midtones, and then there's really no shadow issues, but I'm just going to leave that at 22 points. So let's get rid of this. Okay, now for the actual filters. Keep in mind, when we were shooting film gave us the capability of showcasing our emotion of the day, and our dedicated black and white filters, what we just so happen to call plugins nowadays, was our creative. As I start cascading through each individual filter, you can clearly see for yourself that the tonality is starting to shift in the image, giving us that creativeness of that individual filter. So I'm kind of going to leave this at a cyan filter. We're just going to boost up the intensity. And what I'm going to do right now is, considering the fact that Nancy's shirt is yellow, I'm actually just going to tap into the channel mixer, and I'm actually just going to fine tune. Not the red, but the yellow. The yellow. Just make it a little bit darker. And now what we can do is, if we really wanted to top it off, we can go up to the upper toolbar where under the modify, where you can crop, you can rotate, you can even go back to your presets. But what we're going to do, we're just going to crop this out. I usually like to showcase my grid because it helps me with my rule of thirds. It helps me with my composition. But if there's one thing I'm really a pet peeve about, it's my aspect ratio. I personally like to crop on an unconstrained mode. I like to have full control of my cropping tool. So what we're going to do there is, we're just going to crop that there. We're going to crop that there. I'm kind of feeling that, and then we're going to close it out, and we're stuck with something like this. This is the beauty about FilmPack. It just gives us the capability of stretching our creativeness in any direction, and it's not going to pop in our face. So let's go into some landscapes now, because I know not everyone's shooting fashion. I know not everyone's shooting landscapes or glamour. So we're trying to accommodate everyone here in this one particular webinar and just showcase a whole bunch of different things. So let's navigate through like a different folder just to showcase how this works. What we're going to do is, we're going to go up to the upper left hand side under the folder, and we're going to click the folder. The folder gives us the capability of tapping into our main directory, where we can just start looking up images at our own discretion. Once we do that, that's the wrong folder. Let's go here. Okay, so now we have like a whole bunch of new set of thumbnails and stuff like that, whole bunch of new images to start working off of. So let's have some fun and create some nice images here. Let's bring in a nice landscape if we can find one. Okay, so let's start here. And actually what we're going to do now is, we're actually just going to stop for a quick poll, and we actually want to know, how are you using and why are you using actually FilmPack? Are you using it for our black and whites? Are you using it for our color? Or are you just one of those like I am that are just using it for both parts of its functionality? So we're just going to take a quick second out just to see how people are using FilmPack. Are you using it for the black and whites? Are you using it for color? Are you using it for both? Okay, so we're actually going to close this poll out and we're actually going to share the information and see how everyone at home is using FilmPack. Are we using it for our black and white, or are we using it for our color, or are we just so happen using it for both? So let's close that out. Let's share the results. Okay, so we have 30% of our end users who are using it for our black and whites. We have 0% who's using it for color, and we have 70% of our attendees who are using it for both. So I salute you all. Me, ironically, the sole purpose of FilmPack is by far our aggressive black and whites, but we also offer some really nice color films or emulations in the software. So let's play with some color right now and just showcase the color. So what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to go back into our presets. We're going to go into filter, and now we're going to play around with some color. So let's do that. Pretty much what I'm doing right now is I'm just looking for a nice laboratory standard to work off of. From this point on, I'm just going to completely make it my own so that it stands out. You can clearly see as I'm doing this is all real-time rendering. What I so happen to do is I'm just actually moving around my cursor keys, just looking for that starting point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go with the Fuji Velvia 100, which is a generic film. We're going to select that, and now it's time to make it our own. We're actually going to go into the light and color, and I actually want to boost up the vibrancy because I want to make the green in that grass pop. So we're going to do that. That's step one. We're going to go into the contrast because I want to make all this fine detail as far as the sheeps and the goat herder kind of stand out and pop just a bit. People intend to ask, like, hey, Hector, what's a proper way of using the micro contrast and the fine contrast slider? Once again, I wish I could really tell you, but it's just a matter of just repetition. And I mean, if you see something you like, honestly, I would say go for it. There's really no wrong or right way of using this application. As far as the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows, those are actually really good nifty tools to bring back like landscapes or the background in images. Now for that, we're actually just going to get a little creative where, believe it or not, the same exact filters that can be used in black and white can actually be applied towards color. I mean, doesn't mean necessarily we're not breaking the rules, we're just bending them a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to apply like a little warm tone to this. We're going to go into the blur tool, which I would have to admit is a major tool. I mean, if you were a fan of using like soft focus filters, lens babies for our newcomers, or even buying like a traditional UV filter and putting Vaseline nose grease on the outskirts of that filter just to get that soft focus that you're looking for, we've completely brought that back to life by utilizing the soft focus intensity and diffusion slider. And once again, I would have to definitely say this is like a major creative tool. This is not something you're probably going to use all the time. It's going to be something that you use once in a while, but I would have to admit it is a fun tool to work off of. We also got a little bit more creative where we implemented frames, textures, and light leaks. And we're actually just going to go through some of the different textures and light leaks that we have to offer. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm probably going to pick my favorite, which is the creased paper. We're just going to amplify that just a little bit. And then we're kind of stuck with something like this. So here goes your before, and here goes your after. We can split it in half, dual image display mode, so you can get a nice big real estate. And there goes your before and after. This is our original capture over here. And this is what we've created in under 3 to 5 minutes per se. So let's bring in another image. I actually want to show you how we can adapt to a full-blown RAW file while tapping into our database, giving us the capability of tapping into our DOM modules. For those who are not familiar with our DOMs, I mean, this is what makes DxO so special and so unique. Automatically, by default, we're capable of correcting for the four optical flaws. I mean, as far as the four optical flaws, that's distortion, vignetting, chromatic aberration, but most importantly, lens softness. So we're going to select this one particular image, and you can clearly see right now, we're downloading the automated correction settings, getting rid of all the digital noise, getting rid of the distortion, getting rid of the vignetting, but most importantly, getting rid of all that nasty digital noise that we don't want. So this, depending on how fast your internet connection is going to determine on how fast this is going to run. But so far, so good. We're good to go. And now we can make this our own. For an image like this, I mean, I'm really not going to do much. What I am going to do is I'm actually going to go into the contrast slider, and I want to make all that fine detail kind of pop out and stand out. Well, I'm going to go into the HSL slider. The hue saturation lightness slider is a huge attribute to FilmPack 5, giving us the capability of tapping into all individual primary channels or master channel. So the individual primary channels that I so happen to be tapping into, one would definitely be green. That's a no-brainer because there's a lot of green going on in this one particular image. Just to make that green pop a little bit, I'm probably going to tap into some blues, make that jacket pop a little bit. And then we're just going to crop it out to my own liking. Just by cropping out and using the preserve, you can clearly see as I start moving in, we're going to give you the final output of the image once you're done. Pixel per inch, apply a correction, there goes your final crop. And just to give you a quick subtle before and after, here goes your before. Kind of looks flat, kind of looks muddy, and there goes your after. We can even take it a bit further by utilizing the highlights and the midtones and the shadows. By utilizing the highlights, I can actually recover more of the water in the background. I don't know if you can necessarily see that, but you can definitely see the waters coming back to life. So there goes the water. Let's adjust those midtones, and then we're going to open up the shadows just a bit. Okay, now I'm happy. Here goes your before. A little flat, a little muddy, and here goes your after. We brought it back to life. Okay, so let's bring in two more images, and then we're actually just going to stop for some live Q&A and try to help people find certain functionalities or showcase certain things that they're looking to do, and we're just going to do that all live. Let's bring in this nice landscape. Once again, I'm downloading all the optical corrections, getting rid of that distortion, the vignetting, the chromatic aberration, and the lens softness. And keep in mind, we're adapting to full-blown RAW files here. Okay, so we're good to go there. What we're going to do right now is I'm probably going to go under light and color, and we're going to probably try to open up the exposure just a bit. So let's start off by doing that. We're going to boost up the saturation. And I'm using the same exact preset that I was using before because I really liked it a lot. We're going to do that. Okay, next with the tone curve, I'm going to just create another inverted S curve. And if we really wanted to get creative, we can go into our creative frames just to showcase how that works. And we're done. Here goes your before. A little flat, a little muddy, a little underexposed, and there goes your after. So let's go into one more, and then we're going to actually stop for some Q&A. Keep in mind, this application can be used as a plugin. I just so happen to just be using it as a standalone application. But ideally, if I was using this application, I would probably be driving it directly out of Optics Pro. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back into our presets. I'm probably going to go with one of our designer presets, which is our Persia Red. And what I want to do is I want to make all the crannies along the ceiling, all these little fine details pop out. And once again, I'm going to do that all utilizing the micro contrast sliders. And now to finish it off, I'm probably just going to go into a quick little split tone. We're going to boost up the intensity there. And we're done. Just a quick little. And you can clearly see the distortion being fixed by our DOMs. Keep in mind, we have a couple of people who are saying that we're experiencing troubles with the audio. These webinars are pre-recorded, so you can go back at your own discretion and play them at your own pace. But here goes a quick little before and after. Okay, so for the next 10 minutes or so, Allison and I will be remaining on the line, just answering any live questions that anyone might have. Feel on free to go to the chat dialog box. If there's any help or any little tips and tricks that you want to know about, this is the time to go at it, because Allison and I will give you our undivided attention for the next 10 to 15 minutes just to showcase and point out certain little features and functionalities that you can find using the application. So that being said, what we're going to do right now is we're actually just going to tap into the chat dialog box and see what's on people's mind. Okay, so the first question we're going to get into is we're going to go with John Mann. Okay, so John wants to know, hey Hector, this workflow would replace the development workflow in Lightroom. Okay, so this is not going to necessarily replace the development module in Lightroom, John. What's going to replace the development module in Lightroom completely from head to toe would be DxO Optics Pro. DxO Optics Pro is the world's leading RAW converter. It will completely replace the development module from head to toe in Lightroom, giving you the capability of just cutting your workflow in less than half. I mean, if there's certain features in Lightroom that you will be using, one will be probably the tethering feature. I'm a huge fan of the web segment, the web tablet, where you can create like Flash and HTML Flash web templates, and keywording and cataloging. As far as the development module goes, you'll never touch it again if you're using DxO Optics Pro. Okay, so the next question that we have, when and where do you download these corrections? Does it happen on its own? That's the beauty about using our products. Yes, this will happen automatically. The minute that you bring a RAW file into FilmPack 5, ET will phone home and tap into our main database, correcting for the 4 optical flaws, that being distortion, vignetting, chromatic aberration, and most importantly, lens softness. There's no need to go looking for some, let's say, plugin or module. This will all piggyback off of the EXIF and metadata that we're capable of picking up on in our application. Okay, so this one's going out to Norm. Norm wants to know, hey Hector, is this a JPEG? Can you use this with RAW files? Okay, Norm, so not only can you use this application with RAW files, JPEGs, or TIFFs, if you're using the application as a standalone application, you can adapt to RAW files. If you're using it as a plugin, let's say in Photoshop or Lightroom, you won't be able to adapt to RAW files because you've already opened up that RAW file in a host application. So from that point on, you only have a TIFF or a JPEG to work off of. Now, let's say if you're driving the application out of the world's leading RAW converter on the market, which is DxO Optics Pro, then and only then can you adapt to that raw file and just work directly off the raw file. But I would have to say it depends on how you're using it. If you're using it as a standalone, you can adapt to raw files. If you're using it as a plugin in DxO Optics Pro, you can adapt to raw files. If you're using it as a plugin in Photoshop or Lightroom, you're stuck working off of a JPEG or TIFF, may it be 8-bit or 16-bit. So I hope that helps. Okay, so Rowan wants to know, this is a great question, can we actually do batch processing? Yes, you can. You can only do it in the Elite Edition though, Rowan. So in order to do a batch process, what you have to do is you have to go up to File. You're going to go into Batch Processing. A dialog box will pop up indicating which images you want to batch process. You would hit your plus sign to bring in all your images. You would select what format, what quality, the same subfolder, a different subfolder, name it, suffix, process, and you're good to go. I've personally processed 255 images in under 30 minutes using the batch processing feature in FilmPack. But keep in mind, determining what's under the hood of the machine is going to determine how fast that batch process is going to run. But can you batch process? Yes, you can, but only in the Elite Edition, not in the Essentials Edition. Once again, you cannot batch process in the Essentials Edition because batch processing is considered as a professional feature. So I hope that helps. Okay, so let's see what other questions that we have here. Okay, so this one's going out to my friend Ruben. Ruben wants to know, hey Hector, which films are usually fit to use for portraits and landscapes? Great question. That's a hard one. That's more of a personal preference. But if there were certain films that I were looking for, depending on what type of the day, I'm a really huge fan of T-Max 3200, T-Max 100. Fuji Velvias are really nice to use for landscapes. Fuji Velvias are also really nice to use for portraits if you want to kind of give those skin tones a nice warm feel to it. But just to showcase, like let's say if you wanted to create like your own little favorite queue of filters, what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to go into our legacy films. And this one's going out to Ruben, just in case, just a quick little fix right here. You'll notice if you look under each individual thumbnail that you'll see a little star. By selecting that star, the films automatically go in your favorite folder. So I've already selected these four individual films, and I kind of made them my favorite. If I go up to my favorites, you can clearly see each individual film that I've selected has been implemented into my favorites folder. So there's no need to like swim through all that nonsense. Go to your favorites, get and go. Go to your favorite emulated looks, or you can even do this with your designer presets as well. But you can clearly see like my Kodak T-Max 3200, that's in my favorites, as well as the other four films that I chose. And then you can do that based on your own post-productive workflow where you have all your favorite films for landscapes and portraits all in one single place, supposing to swim through all the nonsense and then select that one look that you're looking for. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Oh, okay, so this one's going out to my friend John. John wants to know, hey Hector, is FilmPack similar to Nik Collection? Does one product do a better job than the other? And I love when people give me a hard answer, because I love when people give me a hard question, because I'm going to give you a hard answer, John. Okay, as we already know, Nik Silver Effects was holding down the industry for about 5 or 7 years. Google acquired the technology and they're not really doing anything to uphold the integrity of the application. Not only that, Nik Silver Effects, what they were doing, and we're just referring to Nik Silver Effects in this situation. What Nik Silver Effects was doing, they were mimicking and simulating black and white. Nick Silver Effects was only capable of giving you about 156 shades of black, white, and gray. Supposed to FilmPack, on the other hand, this is a full-blown emulated look. The same way that we go about studying our sensors in our laboratory is the same way that we went about studying actually raw film under 4 rendering intents. As far as the 4 rendering intents that we study for, that's color, contrast, saturation, most importantly, traditional analog film grain. So you can kind of copy and fake a black and white, or you can get the closest thing to a black and white that you can possibly get to using FilmPack 5. The only way that you're going to actually get all these authentic, 256 shades of black, white, and gray, John, you would literally have to dust off your film camera and drop in a roll of film. But this is the beauty and the kicker about FilmPack 5. Some of the emulated looks or film looks that we've implemented in FilmPack 5 can no longer be purchased. They've been discontinued. These are dead stock films that you're working off of. You can't find these films any longer on the market. That's another thing that makes FilmPack so unique, that we're actually giving you the capability of bringing dead stock film back to life. As far as Nick Collection, what they were doing, they were pretty much manipulating color. Where it's either you can manipulate color or you want to work based off of analog film. As far as FilmPack, what we're doing is we're working strictly off of analog films. We're not manipulating color. So I hope that helps. Okay, so this one going to... Okay, this one's going to Jack. Jack wants to know, hey, how do you move the splitter when you compare pictures? Real simple. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the upper toolbar, which it gives us a good fair amount of comparing tools. You obviously have your single compare. You have your no corrections and your auto correct it, and then you have your split preview. If you hit your split preview once, this is your dual image display mode. If you hit it again, you fall into the split preview. From this point on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the drag line, and I can literally move the drag line back and forth. And what's really funky is you can literally see the distortion correction kicking in as I'm moving in back and forth. So I hope that helps, Jack. But yeah, simply what you have to do, grab that drag line and simply just move it right or left, and you can clearly see the before and after effects. So I hope that helps. Okay, and just for kicks, I'm actually just going to teach you how to create a signature look known as blue shadows. And this is just something I've stumbled upon just watching like some really cool movies such as Fight Club. If you're a fan of Fight Club, if you've ever seen Fight Club, there's a tremendous amount of color grading going on in that image, and you can do color grading in FilmPack 5. So we're just going to bring Rachel into the set. I'm going to actually go into filters. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to go into our black and whites. I'm going to select my T-Max 3200. I'm going to try to move a little bit fast because we're actually running out of time fairly quick. I'm going to grab the intensity slider and I'm going to drop it all the way down because I want to turn it into a silky smooth black and white finish. From this point on, what I'm going to do is we're actually going to go into our... I'm actually not going to go into my micro contrast slider, but what I am going to do is I'm actually going to go into my tone curve and tap into my independent blue channel. Create an inverted S-curve just to make some blue shadows. We're going to go now into our channel mixer and we're going to amplify that blue just a little bit. We're going to go into our filters and we're going to select a green filter. If you really wanted to go crazy, you can go with the frame look, you can go with the texture look, but I'm really traditional. It's all about like that traditional analog film look for me. So I'm actually going to steer away from it. But what I am definitely going to do is a soft focus effect. So we're going to do that. We're going to take our set center point and we're going to leave it in our main focus attention, which is Rachel's pretty face. And from this point on, what I can do is I can start fine-tuning at my own discretion. By doing this, it gives me the capability of mimicking what a soft focus filter, a soft focus lens can do, For our newcomers in the industry, we call them lens babies now. We brought all these individual pieces of hardware into our laboratory to be able to do this. So now you can clearly see that Rachel has that beautiful like soft focus filter effect and those blue shadows going on as far as like where all the dark areas are at. So that's a really quick, easy way of creating some really nice blue shadows. Okay, so we're just going to answer one more question. This one's going out to John, man. John wants to know, hey, Hector, is there any way to do local adjustments in in FilmPack, such as Nick did with their U-point technology? As of now, you cannot. But I'm not going to say that you won't be able to in the near future. Hint, hint, if you know what I mean. Hold on tight, and hopefully we'll be able to accommodate that one part of the functionality a little bit sooner than later. So I hope that helps, John. But as of now, you cannot. In a situation like that, to do a localized adjustment, I would just drive the application directly out of Photoshop. Use it as a plugin, create an adjustment layer, and then make your little adjustment layers that way, and then just flatten your layer at the end of the day, and you're good to go. But as of now, you cannot make localized adjustments. All the adjustments that you've seen today have been globalized adjustments. So I hope that helps. So until the next time we meet, Allison and I will be signing off. We want to thank everyone so much for attending today's webinar. Keep shooting, keep banging, and stop and check our website out for any up and coming webinars that are coming up. And we'll all see you soon and talk to you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.